day everyone, I am Daisy Mediano from BSc English 1A. Our topic is all about childhood special, and we are going to discuss the various developmental disorders in children and adolescents. Developmental disorders is a group of psychiatric conditions originating in childhood that involve serious impairment in different areas. These conditions begin during the developmental period and may impact in day-to-day functioning and usually last throughout a person's lifetime. There are several ways of using this term. The most narrow concept is used in category. Specific disorders of physiological development. These are learning disability, communication disorders, learning disorders, and autism spectrum disorders. Causes of developmental disorder. There are environment, genetics, and stress in early childhood. Learning disabilities are disorders that affect one's ability to understand or use spoken or written language through mathematical calculation, but not all learning problems fall into the category of learning. There are kinds of learning disabilities. It includes dyslexia. Dyslexia is a reading and language-based learning disability. With this problem, a child may not understand letters, groups of letters, sentences, or paragraphs. How we can say that the child has this kind of learning disability? So the child who has dyslexia may have difficulty on letters and words recognition, understanding words, ideas, reading speed and fluency under general vocabulary skills. Next, we have dysgraphia. It's a term for problems with writing. An older child may not form letters correctly, and there is difficulty in writing with a certain space. Writing disabilities indicates a struggle to organize thoughts on paper. Symptoms of a written language disability revolve the act of writing, such as neatness and consistency of writing, accurately copying letters and words, and spelling consistency. Next is dyscalculia. It's a term for problems concerning math. Learning disabilities in math very greatly depends on the child's strengths and weaknesses. The child's ability to do math will be affected differently by a language learning disability, visual disorder, or a difficulty with sequencing memory or organization. A child with dyscalculia might also have trouble with counting principles such as counting by 2 or counting by 5, or have difficulty on telling time. Lastly, we have information processing disorders. Are learning disorders related to a person's ability to use the information that they take in through their sense of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching.
Communication disorder. Communication disorder include problem related to speech, language, auditory processing. Some causes of communication disorders include hearing loss, neurological disorders, brain injury, mental retardation, drug abuse, physical impairments such as cleft lip or palate, emotional or psychiatric disorders, and developmental disorders. Frequently, however, the causes is unknown. In other words, when we see a communication disorder, is an impairment in the ability to receive, send, process, and comprehend concepts or verbal, non-verbal, and graphic symbol system. A communication disorder may be evident in the process of hearing, language, and/or speech. A communication disorder may range in severity from mild to profound. Autism spectrum disorder. Autism spectrum disorder is a lifelong development disability characterized by difficulties in social interaction, communication, restricted and repetitive interests and behaviors, and sensory sensitives. In other words, when we say autism spectrum disorder is a condition related to brain development that impacts how a person perceives and socializes with others, causing problems in social interaction and communication. The disorder also includes limited and repetitive patterns of behavior. There are three main symptoms of autism. First, delayed language of skills. Second, delayed movement of skills. And lastly, delayed cognitive or learning skills. The causes of autism is: first is genes, second, environmental triggers, and third, other health conditions such as muscular dystrophy. When we say muscular dystrophy, a group of inherited genetic conditions that gradually cause the muscles to weaken. Down syndrome, a genetic condition that typically cause a learning disability and a range of physical features. Cerebral palsy. When we say cerebral palsy, a condition that affects the brain and nervous system, causing problems with movement and coordination. Infantile spasm. When we say infantile spasm is a type of epilepsy that develops while a child is still very young, usually before they're 1 year old.
Good day. This is the continuation of the report of Ms. Vergara. ADHD. ADHD means Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. ADHD or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is a behavior condition that makes focusing on everyday and routine challenging. People with ADHD typically have trouble getting organized, staying focused, making realistic plans, and thinking before acting. They may be fidgety, noisy, and unable to adapt to challenging situations. For example, if the children act without thinking, that's the example of the ADHD. Children with ADHD need super parenting. I searched some difficulties for children with ADHD. We have 3 core difficulties. First is trouble self-reduction. Second, inconsistent behavior. Third, different response to consequences. For example, if you give a reward in your child for finishing homework, the first you offer, they must be really excited and really motivated to do their homework. But when you tried with the same offer, later it loses its value very quickly. Kids get easily bored and just don't care about it. Development of movement is so much part in our everyday life that we sometimes get the skills that underlying walk through along the street and tie your shoelaces. Most children will develop these skills so much easily and naturally. But there are some people who do have difficulties in this area and were particularly interested in one group, a condition called DCD, or Developmental Coordination Disorder. Developmental Coordination Disorder, also known as developmental dyspraxia, is a chronic neurological disorder beginning in childhood that can affect planning of movements and coordination as a result of brain messages not being accurately transmitted to the body. We have 5 symptoms for the developmental coordination disorder. Have a difficulty moderating the amount of sensory information that their body is constantly sending them. Poor memory, poor sense of direction, poor motor control. If we have a symptoms, there are also a treatment. Treatment for developmental disorder. Treatment approaches, for example, medication, counseling, and education services. Clinical therapies, for example, behavior therapy. Complementary therapies, biomedical treatment, family support, and service delivery models. That's all. Thank you.